coming for a splash. Three, two, one, now. All clear. Punch it. Great job. You did really well.
This is the original esport racing game. This is iRacing.
Lime Rock Park went just about as expected, proving that even with small cars, the cramped conditions of the circuit means something's gotta give, and someone will lose out. But perhaps the most pleasant surprise was the first podium of the season for Michael Shaw. The question is whether he can adapt to this drastically different style of racing here at Monza. With this track even producing draft races in the world's fastest machinery, these tiny SRFs are sure to create some trains and some talking points. We'll see who chugs their way to the line first as we get ready to watch round 6 of the Weekend Warriors, and you'll see it all live here on the Global SimRacing channel and the iRacing Esports Network. Hi, I'm Joe Peak, and with me in the booth is Adam Young. Behind the scenes is our director, the Dr. Amjad Yaman, and he's using cameras provided by Dougie Beard. Adam, they call this place the Temple of Speed, though I'm not sure these cars will necessarily inspire that at this track.
Oh no, we got a lot of these guys that are going along at the amazing speed of 120 miles an hour when Formula One cars can do upwards of 220 around here. But, you know, hey, to each their own. Still a lot of drafting going on, still a lot of racing. These cars still have to watch out for a few things as they navigate the 11 turns on the Grand Prix layout here for today. Of course, Monza, a track that's steeped in history, been around since 1922. For a long time, held the closed circuit track record here around the oval portion of the track, which is modeled on iRacing. You can check it out. And another way to check out the Grand Prix circuit, though, is to take a lap in the GSRC car.
All right, we've got Richard Losper in the GSRC SRF, so let's do a lap around Monza. Heading down the front straight, the draft is going to be huge in these spec racers, so if your competitor hasn't blown by you already by the braking zone, they're likely setting up a pass into Rettifilio. The only thing is, they'll want to make sure that they get it done early, because if you go through here too wide, it gets messy easily, even in these small cars. And if you find yourself overshooting it, the sleeping policeman on the inside will be knocking you all over, so watch out. Honestly, what's more important here is setting up a good exit out of the second apex, because in these underpowered cars, you'll be flat to the floor all the way until the next chicane. The Curva Grande is just a long, gentle bend to the right, and you won't even have to track out at the exit. Just make it the shortest distance possible on your way through it. Now we're approaching Della Roggia. This is once again a place where you can make a pass, but really don't want to try and stay too wide. Also, the first apex curb is relatively gentle, but watch out for the second one lest it upset your car. After that, it's a short stretch to the first Lesmo. On the outside, you've got some AstroTurf to give you some leeway, but make sure not to drift it all the way into the gravel, or else you'll lose precious speed. Then, it's another brief period on the gas, and you brake for the second Lesmo. This is definitely the more important of the two, since it empties onto the backstretch. As with many of the long straights around here, the SRF punches a giant hole in the air, and is going to keep your rivals tucked right in behind you. This is also one of the few places of elevation change, as it dips under the old oval, but it's not terribly significant. Now we brake for the Ascari chicane. This is the fastest of the three chicanes, and if you get that first apex right, you should be back on the power all the way through the other two. Just be extra careful of those black and yellow apex curves, or else you'll likely lose control. At these high speeds, it probably won't be a small accident either. Now we approach the famous Parabolica. If you want a more straightforward place to pass, this is about the only one. but I still wouldn't advise it because a nicely timed over-under move will let your competitor get you right back on the front stretch. But the unusual thing about this corner is that unlike most other 180-degree turns, it's an early apex with a big, wide, increasing radius on the exit. Really mash that power down when you know you've got the car lined up and pick your line early. Weaving around at the last minute will do you and your rival no good. This is yet another place where it'll become a strategic draft battle more than a fight of technical prowess. At any rate, our little red car probably won't win over the Tifosi, but we finished a lap around Monza.
You see just how long of a lap around here it is with cars that don't have a lot of power. Obviously, these long straights can take a little while. But the Weekend Warriors are brought to you by the Hallett Race Shop. Hallett Race Shop is located at the Hallett Racetrack near Tulsa, Oklahoma. They are a full-service SRF shop, an authorized customer service rep for SCCA Enterprises, and owners of the Hallett Racetrack. You can find more information at hallettracing.net. Big shout out to the Hallett folks for bringing us, or for coming on board, I should say, for this season as the official sponsor. Let's take a look at the championship, though, while we've got the opportunity. Sadro has closed in to within 1 point on Steve Elson. These two drivers are the epitome of consistency. They haven't been terribly fast. They've been up there, but they've certainly not been winning races. Donald Fitterer as well, who is still in that Spec 2 championship, has been running up in third place for a couple rounds now in the points. He has just had a phenomenal season. McAreevy sits there in fourth, but Michael Shaw, with that one podium finish, jumps him up 8 spots to join the top 5 here in the points. But he's got a long ways to go to the next car. Let's take a look at the Spec 2 championship. Adam, is that just as close?
Yeah, let's go ahead and pull that up here. And no, that would be the short answer there. Granted, there's only one drop week factored into this here so far. Bob Kern was able to move up a spot. So the middle part of the top 5, pretty close, but Donald Fitterer is just running away with this thing right now with his finishes, in a lot of cases, in the top 5 of the final race. I mean, he should be running for the S1 championship here at this point, probably be doing quite well in it. And then, of course, Ramon Regaldo, though, he's a big jumper as well, though, up 7 spots from last time out at Lime Rock Park with that good finish there, but still 108 points behind Donald.
No surprise that Lime Rock shook things up a bit as Ramon finds himself climbing the order. Now, for today's race itself, as we mentioned, there are drop weeks to take into account. We've shown you with one of those involved in the points. This is halfway through the season. And this is a 40-minute race, which means because of the limited fuel cells compared to what the real cars run in the real world, they can expect 1 pit stop. That's a big talking point around this track, which is both very thirsty and offers lots of opportunities to save that fuel. They ration the points, so no matter how many cars show up, last place will always get 25 points. Now, they also have penalties. You can see there, for every 10 incidents on track, they lose 3 points. Those can be easy to rack up at a track like this with lots of chicanes. They do have a spare car in case they run into any sort of damage. And, well, that's also going to be incredibly critical with the fact that this is a track that requires you to have very clean aerodynamics. Now, this season is brought to you on the iRacing Esports Network, and if you've been enjoying that, you should probably subscribe. All you got to do that is click the big red button on their YouTube page that says subscribe, and then all of the Weekend Warriors will show up in your YouTube feed. Looking out the back of Perry, giving a little bit of a draft to the number 270 car, which is Christopher Patterson, that last lap, and that draft helps him up to P7, which is 3rd in the Spec 2. Actually, I think that is 4th in the Spec 2 for Christopher Patterson. But our overall pole sitter, no surprises. He's been fast the last 2 races. He's been fast today. Sven Demmel has returned and is once again dominating.
Yeah, I mean, he's just flat out quick. I mean, in practice, he ran a 2:14.9, and we figure that might have been completely by himself, which is just incredible compared to the next closest guys. So that's going to be something he's going to be one to watch out for here today for sure, and of course sitting on the provisional pole here so far.
What everyone's wondering is if he can break the draft with that pace. Right now in qualifying, though, he isn't running the same sort of gap. It's only about a tenth between himself and second on the grid, which is Daniel Sadro, one of our competitors for the championship. And that will change as the races go on if this Diaz driver in the number 22 keeps showing up, because the drop weight races will help him out. He missed the first 3 rounds. So in other words, he can't have a single bad race, can Sven Demmel, as we watch him circulate towards the Parabolica. Let's see if he can get another fast lap in. He's actually only set 1 timed lap here in qualifying, and he's already on the pole, if that tells you anything.
Yeah, I still think a 2:14 would be attainable here. Now, I think I put a wheel off just a minute ago. I'm not 100% sure, so we'll see if this lap he's getting ready to come down here actually counts. We'll stay with him here for just long enough to see that. And nope, it did not. In fact, I think it was a little bit slower anyway. He was really pushing it there coming out of Parabolica just a little while ago. You know, this is going to be a race, though, Joe, that you mentioned drafting already. I mean, this is going to be about as close to a restrictor plate race that we talk about with stock cars as you're going to get in these SRFs. We're going to see packs. We're going to see lots of contact, I think, and actually particularly going into the chicanes. Even in qualifying already, we've seen a number of guys accidentally get into each other, running nose and tail, trying to stay with each other in the draft. And I think it's going to be huge here for today. And you brought up the aero. You do not want anything messing up the front end of your car.
Andy Spicer coming across with a clean car himself. This will be his first timed lap, hopefully. It is, but it's only good enough for 21st, so he's got some work to do for sure. Now, Joe Aguilar has shown up lately, and he was pretty fast in the warm-up. The number 2 car currently coming to the line. Let's see what he's got underneath him. Well, it looks like this is an out lap, actually, because unless he's running 7.5-minute lap times, I'm not sure that he should be out there. So let's go to Donald Fitterer now, our Spec 2 leader in the points and current pole sitter for the Spec 2 race. He's got a 2:16.2 on the board, which is only half a second off of our overall pole sitter. He crosses the line, and it's a 2:16.7, so that's not going to be an improvement.
Yeah, that's actually about a half second off where he was running before. Now, Jerry McAreevy here, UKNA driver, he'll be coming along, and he is, looks like he's in the draft there. See if he's able to do anything.
That's Jeff Jacobson.
Yeah, Jeff Jacobson, as he pulls out. I think maybe Jerry was wanting him to stay right there, try to use him a little bit more, but this run here down the line will be all his own, and he does set his new best time at 2:16.8. And that'll get him up, looks like, to 11th position.
It was 10th briefly, and then I didn't see quite who. Someone topped him. Back to our pole sitter. Another timed lap that unfortunately doesn't count. Not the worst thing in the world. He's still sitting up front. And Daniel Sadro still trying very hard to topple him. In fact, while Sven Demmel's only had 1 lap that counted, Daniel Sadro's had 5 laps that counted. It's not for lack of trying. Jason Perry on board with him. Currently sitting at a 2:16.8. Let's see what this one does. A 2:16.5. That's going to bump him up to the 2nd row. Sadro's last lap, sadly, not going to count for him. Must have had an off track somewhere. And let's not forget about our current points leader, Steve Elson, still winless this season after 5 rounds gone. He's sitting in 6th, though. He did have his bacon saved by the drop weeks, as Lime Rock Park was not kind to the number 56 car. He's getting a little help from Adam Bradshaw. Bradshaw himself not having the best of qualifying. He tends to be up towards the top 10 and fighting for wins in the Spec 2. So hopefully he can get a good one underneath him. Elson seems to be on a bit of an out lap or a slow lap of some sort. So let's watch Bradshaw, see if he can jump up from the 23rd spot he's in right now. down and across the line. Remember, it comes early here for the timing line. It is going to be a 2:18.6. That's much better, but only good enough for 22nd, unfortunately. How about Stevie Ray sitting in P10? That lap not going to count for the Texan. And hey, this is a name we haven't seen in a while on GSRC. Kip Stevens joins us in the SRF. Usually we see him in a similarly paced car, the MX-5. As up at the top of your screen, you can see Sven Dimmel has extended his lead to 0.2 now over Daniel Sadro. Kip has yet to set a lap time here in qualifying. This first one is only good enough for 24th, though, and he doesn't have any help. Surprised we're not seeing more drivers try to play a few tricks with the draft around here. Christopher Patterson down in 12th. Not going to be the first to take the checkered flag because he's heading into the pits. Instead, it's going to be Andy Spicer behind them. Spicer comes down out of Parabolica. He's followed by Bob Kern, who's only 2 spots ahead of him. Spicer's last lap is faster, and that is not going to improve his position, unfortunately. Kern also went faster, also does not improve his place on the grid. Murakami's final lap, not going to count for him. Pierre Lorry, that's a new face here. Also, unfortunately, going to get a no-show on the final qualifying lap. Telmo Almiral from 23rd, not going to find any more time. Spec 2 leader in the points. Doesn't think it's worth to come around for his final lap. He heads into the pits. Next car going to be Jeff Jacobson back here in 14th position. Last cars running, I believe, are Bureau, Doherty, and Stevens. So let's see what Jacobson's got underneath him. His fastest is a 2:16.9. That was his last lap through. This one is a 2:17.3. That's not going to do it. Doherty crosses and not going to set a better time. Bureau is going to abandon his lap. That leaves the last car to be Kip Stevens. Currently, the last car with a lap time. We have a number of them behind who don't have times in, but I'm not sure that they will be starting this race. 15 down towards the Parabolica. His fastest is a 2:27.1 with it 8 seconds off the next car up. I'm pretty sure Kip can do better. He tends to be pretty fast in the MX-5. So let's see what this one holds on the cards. Nothing, unfortunately. He had an off-track. So poor Kip Stevens going to start at the very back of the grid. That does bring us to a solidified grid. Let's give you the order of the start. Sven Dimmel will be on the pole with Daniel Sadro starting in second. Joe Aguilar comes in and sets an impressive time in third, with Jerry McAreevy flanking him on the outside of row 2. Then you've got Donald Fitterer starting fifth with Jason Perry, P6. Dominic Bureau starts in 7th. Steve Elson, P8, and Jim McGill in 9th. Stevie Ray will round out our top 10. Adam?
Yeah, going on to 11th and row 6, we find Chris Murakami, 2:16.7. Alongside him would be Chris Patterson. Ramon Regaldo would be in 13th position. Jeff Jacobson rounds out row 7. Edward Doherty and Lee Tomlinson make up row 9. And Ryan Walker, Bob Kern in row 9. Pierre Lowry, as you mentioned, new name, in row 10. Alongside him will be Tom Gradwell.
Andy Spicer will start in the 21st spot with Adam Bradshaw behind him. Very disappointing qualifying for Bradshaw. Telmo Almiral will be 23rd and Kip Stevens 24th. Checking to see if Nielsen is here. Looks like he should be able to grid up. Gaspers is unfortunately not here, so he won't be able to challenge Dimmel. Paul Holdy will be 27th and C-Love will be 28th. So That is our grid for today as the cars start to line up. It'll be a rolling start, as is tradition here in the Weekend Warriors. And that is something to be thankful for, as it's already going to be chaotic enough down into the first chicane. It's not just the way it closes up in there, but we've often talked, Adam, about how these cars and tall curbs don't go together.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be just really interesting. And these curves here, some of the sausage curves here are actually high enough that we could see the back ends of some of these like completely lift off the ground and high centered, and they may not be able to get away from them without a tow. Now, hopefully that doesn't happen. I think that'll be rare, but that gives you an idea of how tall they are.
Certainly not made for these cars, as we wait for the rest of the field to line up behind the Porsche pace car. I genuinely am shocked that we did not see more drivers working together with teammates or friends during qualifying to try and set faster laps. Between Demel and Sadro, there is about a little over 2/10, but thankfully it's not the 3/10 that we saw in the warm-up. You can see they're going to start just before they go underneath the old oval that Adam mentioned, so we won't do a full pace lap behind the pace car, just a couple corners, and then we'll go racing for 40 minutes today. But we mentioned also, Adam, the fuel strategies and the trickery that can be involved there. I suspect that we're going to see some drivers playing possum today.
Yeah, I think fuel strategy is going to be a huge part of it. How much fuel you're going to take, make sure you got to have those numbers right. But you mentioned the possum part. Yeah, there's going to be some trickeration going on. I'll still steal an old DW word there, just based on the fact that you're going to have to try to get every little bit of an advantage you can. But one thing you probably won't be able to do, and that's going to be to save a lot of fuel, at least outside of the draft. I mean, you are on the throttle here so much that saving fuel really isn't going to be much of a factor.
All right, they head towards Ascari. Sven Demel's got Daniel Sadro on the outside of him. Can Daniel manage to keep up with the pace of the very fast HJ Motorsports driver? And will anybody maybe try to also follow suit and ride the coattails, or will they start battling? That can always interrupt anybody's hopes of maybe using a little bit of fuel saving in the draft of the car ahead. Up to Parabolica, and Porsche will peel into the pit lane, and Demel will have control of the field. Again, this is round 6, halfway through the season here in the Weekend Warriors, presented by Hallett Race Shop. Coming up slowly but surely as they anticipate this red, white, and black pace car letting them go. Not going to be a long run to the line. There goes the Porsche pace car. Sven Demel waits. Line is almost there. Oh, it's a long wait. Green flag is out. That's the longest I've ever seen the green flag take. Jason Perry's going to take advantage of it, immediately take it 3 wide. Look at them fan out on this wide front stretch. It is going to narrow up soon, though. Drivers are going to have to get this settled out by the time they hit the first chicane at Areta Filio. Demel still has the inside of Sadro, but Perry is now looking for 3rd place, and it is almost becoming a parking lot into the first corner.
Yeah, see a couple of cars already taking to the gravel to avoid other machines. And then a few bumps running. Donald Federer is the one back there right now. He's just locked into traffic right around Stevie Ray. Steven Elson is back there. But up front, Sven Demel just getting a great start, but Jason Perry and Daniel Sadro here are locked together.
And speaking of the gravel, he left them in the dust. Demel already extending more than a second gap over everybody else, and there's still lots of side-by-side battling here into the second chicane. De La Roja, I think Stevie Ray having a little bit of an off as he tries to battle with Christopher Patterson. Otherwise, everybody through and into the Lesmos. This does not look good for everyone else. Perry's in second, but he is dropping fast off of Sven Demel. Once again, way off track for Stevie Ray, who returns, and that run through the gravel sent him way backwards. Perry going to lose out on second place as Daniel Sadro slipstreams by. And that might be the exact thing, Adam, that I think they'll want to do in this race, is start leapfrogging to see if they can run down the 22.
Yeah, they're going to have to right now. But just to recap there, the first couple of chicanes, I only saw one car end up with any kind of true damage. That was Andy Spicer that ended up with a bent up front end. So he's back in the pack right now. Everybody else able to get by here so far clean. But you mentioned Sven Demmel. I mean, running away with it right now. You might see some almost like two-car packs here starting to develop too. I mean, you got to remember, we got Joe Aguilar and Jeremy Greavy right back there as well.
In fact, we ride on board with Aguilar, the blue number 2 machine, holding on to the tail of Perry. And is Perry going to give a bump draft? Yes, indeed he is. So he knows the game. He's going to try and do his best to get them up there. That 2-second gap might look almost insurmountable at this point, and they're only one lap done. They hit the Redifilio chicane for the second time, and still cars battling for position. McGill trying to hold off Patterson back there. Side-by-side action between Jeff Jacobson and Stevie Ray, who almost gets into the side of Lee Tomlinson. But I think everybody is through the second time cleanly.
These guys are going to have to be really careful with the bump drafting. The front ends on these SRFs are really fragile. You don't want to do anything to bend them up, and I already see a couple of even front runners with just slightly scraped up front ends, including Joe Aguilar and Jerry McGreevy. There isn't a lot of damage, but it doesn't take a lot when every little bit of aerodynamics comes into play here.
Absolutely. And we're nearly 5 minutes in to the 40-minute race that we have in store today. Sadro continuing to lose time in the slower, twistier bits. It is 2.1 seconds, 2.2 even. More action is honestly towards the back as we ride on board with McAreevy getting a little bit of a shove from Elson. Giving him the hurry up. Oof. Elson taking a lot of those sausage curbs through Ascari, but surviving it. The 56 giving chase. Just ahead of him, you could see Aguilar working together with Jason Perry.
You mentioned a couple cars in the back running into trouble. One problem spot that I'm starting to notice outside of the chicanes, Joe, is going to be the Lesmo curves. And you've seen a couple cars with the back ends coming around, trying to come around, and the drivers are overcorrecting, sending them into the gravel trap. So that could be a story, especially since those curves have a tendency to get a little dirty and a little slick as races go along.
Perry gets right back by. Oddly enough, ahead of them, Sadro's doing this all on his lonesome and is pulling away slightly from the two fighting for third, who are going to be side by side, and that's certainly not going to help them. Perry to the inside and Redifilio. Joe Aguilar eventually slots back into the line. So what was 3 cars from second, third, and fourth has now turned into 4 cars from third. Oh, and a cut course penalty for Perry. Perry dropping back like a rock.
Looks like he shortened that first apex just a touch more than the simulator wanted to let him. That's where that course cut penalty will come from. He will lose easily, I think, 3 spots right there because of that, but he is back in line and in the draft.
A lot of cars now finally running mostly single file around this circuit. I see another car pulling off. That is Dominique Bureau. I think this was not necessarily a cut course penalty, just outbraking himself into the De La Roja chicane. Bumps him down to P15, unfortunately, about 3 positions lost from that mistake. Let's go to Bob Kern just behind them. Nice little 3-car battle. That's Lee Tomlinson, you see in the teal and pink machine in front of him, and Ryan Walker in the orange and black car. Definitely some damage on the rear spoiler of Tomlinson. He is pulling a slight tow from the car ahead of him, which is Pierre Laurie.
John Nielsen will be our first retiree of the day, so I believe we got now 23 cars out there and running.
Now we're watching Elson, who has certainly done a good job working his way up the ladder. He started this thing in 8th. Oh, and we got a big problem. Sorry to interrupt myself. Dominique Bureau involved in this. Looks like Pierre Laurie involved. This started, though, with Edward Doherty. He's on the outside of Dominique Bureau heading into the Parabolica. The two tried to go into one, and that just did not work. A few cars having to take evasive action around that blind right-hander.
Yeah, and Doherty will end up having to be the one that takes the toe out of all that, because that side contact, well, his car was not going to be able to make it back to the pit lane. It was driving so crooked.
Oh, boy. Laurie had a hard hit.
Ooh,
Nearly
Sandro
went into the
gets
outside.
loose. Hold on, Joe. It threw Regaya, excuse me, and that's going to allow the entire pack behind him to get caught up. So now we've got a battle for 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 6th, all right here.
Yeah, that De La Rosa chicane certainly did not agree with him that time around. That's extended the gap up to Sven Demmel by about 5 seconds now.
And look what that jam up did to that pack deck there. They're 3 wide for a second. They get back going back here now at 2-2. Got Jason Perry back there, bump traffic, Steven Elson. That gives Elson the bump he needs to get past Joe Aguilar. Maybe he can get McAreevy here as they go through Ascari. Woo!
That was awful tight. Well, that backfired as well. Steve Elson, who I was just in the ladder, was up in 4th momentarily. Now he's back down to 6th. He's going to have to do some work to get back up to these 3, because you can see how much of a gap he's lost. Aguilar pokes his nose to the inside and then lifts and lets the other 2 through.
And with all of that, it was like Sadro never got loose. He's already regained what he had lost with them getting racy back there.
And they're still racy. Look at this. Onto the front stretch. Aguilar going to give Jason Perry the go-ahead as he pushes him up to the front of the train. McAreevy joins in and waits patiently behind, not really interested in a pass quite yet.
And it's worth noting that Sven Demmel up there all by his lonesome, just maybe occasionally looking back in the mirror, see what's going on behind him, but he's got like a 6-second lead right now, so he's just fine.
If he could throw the mirrors off the thing, they're worthless at this point.
No, it's just out of curiosity.
On the car.
That's the only reason.
Yeah, exactly. This battle for 3rd really has been giving us a lot of the fun so far. You can see how much Sadro has been able to gap this group since then. And I think they're starting to settle down a little bit. They realize what exactly they've been doing, losing out to the number 51. So Jason Perry now into 3rd, leading Aguilar 4th, McAreevy 5th, and Elson has reeled them back in enough that I think he's still in this fight. He's P6.
And meanwhile, that group behind them, though. Oh, speaking of that group behind him, Jim McGill with a big off. Is he able to hold it? No, he's going through Lesmos and he has to dump it into the gravel. Who was it? Christopher Patterson had a bird's eye view of that.
He did a great job getting out of the way at the last moment. He couldn't tell which way he was going, although honestly McGill couldn't tell which way he was going either. See him return to the track and the car's all sorts of loose. Lane's driver eventually gets out of the way. That drops Jim McGill all the way down to 13th.
And I was just getting ready to say that second pack was able to start catching up that first pack there, and then that happened, and we could just throw that out the window. But Donald Federer leading that second pack, between him and Christopher Patterson going along in the S2 standings here for today. We actually have ourselves a pretty good battle up there.
Yep, and I have to imagine Patterson is just happy to be in the same group as Fitterer for the moment. We'll see when that gets closer to the end. They're trying to be chased down by third in the Spec 2. That is Ramon Regalado. He was working with Stevie Ray, but Stevie Ray has left him on his lonesome now.
Yeah, I'm wondering maybe if this is the first little bit of strategy here or something else, but Stevie Ray coming down.
Yeah, this is just what Stevie Ray does. He is always the first to come in.
Pit at the beginning of the window, and he always throws me for a loop when he does it, but hey, you know, if it works, it works.
We'll see if he can maybe leapfrog a few cars. Maybe there's some drivers battling a little bit too hard for their own sake, and running by yourself for once is the way to go here at Monza. As we watch Jerry McAreevy give a shove to Jason Perry. This is up in third. They've still got Aguilar just behind in the mirrors of McAreevy with Elson, the fourth car in the train. Their way around the Lesmos. I think you're right on this one, Adam. That seems to really be one of the trickiest spots for these drivers. I feel like we've seen far more mistakes through there than any of the chicanes.
Yeah, I think everybody went into it kind of thinking that the chicanes might be a little bit of a trouble spot. Maybe they prepared for it mentally, but those Lesmos, they get slick, and that's kind of what we're seeing out there. And you know, the good news about the Lesmos, though, is you have all that runoff there. So if you do get yourself into trouble, you can put it into the gravel, and at the very least, you're able to continue on with your day. You're going to lose spots, but, you know, hey, sometimes discretion is the better part of valor. Problems here with Tom Gradwell. Slow through the Lesmos. Let's see what happened to him.
He went wide on the first one. Yep, off into the gravel. And then, did he actually hit the wall? I think he stayed out of it. Let's watch from onboard just to double check. So the latest victim of these deceptively simple-looking 90-degree right-handers. Just the lightest to touch. It was a kiss.
Yeah, into the soft wall that's there.
That's how they say hello in Italy. Well, Sven Demmel is still our leader, and now by 8 seconds. He continues to just school everybody. This is the third race for Sven Demmel in the Weekend Warriors ever since he's shown up. He's won both of the races he's taken part in. He's leading this third one and is not looking like anything can stop him. Granted, the first race at Silverstone, we saw him make a mistake in the pits. He still came back from that. The second race at Lime Rock Park, he was unfortunately taken out by traffic through no fault of his own. Still came back and took the lead and won it with his spare car. So I don't know if I even dare say, Adam, that unless tragedy befalls him, because he still manages to make good on it.
He's going to have tragedy befall him twice.
As we watch the battle for third.
Now, slowly, these guys here for third on back between Perry, McAreevy, Aguilar, and Elson. Slowly but surely, they're starting to catch back up to Sadro here. They were a half second faster that last lap, and that gap now down to about a second and a half or so.
And just watching them here in these couple corners that we've been on them, look at the body language difference compared to the first few laps. This is very well behaved.
Well, you know, some of it is they didn't really run together in big packs in practice. Work, you know, they did a little bit in qualifying, but it's the first time this group has really been together. So now that they got their braking points figured out as a group, they're not worried about running into each other as much, getting a little bit more comfortable. You see bump drafting going on. I'd expect this, and I think that's where they'll start to be able to take advantage of it here. They've got a long way to go before they can catch Demmel, but I think right now catching Sadro here is in the realm of possibility in the next few laps.
Certainly job number one. None of them look to be pitting this time by. Getting close to the halfway point. McAreevy certainly is willing to work together with Perry. He's been bump drafting him on a number of straights. Elson, though, is tired of sitting last in line. He's going to leapfrog at least one, maybe two, maybe all three. He's up next to Perry. He's going to get all three, and unfortunately that causes a checkup. And Perry, McAreevy, and Aguilar all get into each other on their way into Rettifilio.
See, and that's the kind of thing right there. Like, you're in a pack, you're making good time. Like, sometimes it's better just to wait, you know? Like, it's going to be better for everybody to just wait a little bit longer. And Elson didn't do that there.
And it extended the gap by almost half a second. It is now 2.1 between themselves and Sadro. So 23 minutes left on the clock. Been watching this pack for a bit. Let's jump back to the next one behind them with the Spec 2 leader, Donald Fitter. He's still up in front of Christopher Patterson, who is second place in Spec 2. They've been dragging along Chris Murakami, but Murakami hanging back a little bit for the moment. And every time I glance over, it seems like he's about that far back. Not sure if he's struggling or if he wants to be this far away from these two.
They're not putting as much pressure as they are in that front pack there with these guys on each other. And that's okay, you know. This stage of the race, we're only halfway through this thing. These guys still have their pit stops. The thing I'm starting to wonder about is you start talking about restriction plate racing and NASCAR and all that. Are any of these guys talking with one another, you know, about maybe trying to pit at about the same time? Because they're doing well together, working in the draft, and it's one of those things that might help to benefit each other to pit together. But you have to wonder if there's any kind of communication like that going on.
Well, if they are, then they're doing it over a private voice chat, either Discord or here on iRacing, because I haven't heard hardly any talk at all this race.
You'd have to. You don't want to tip your hat. we knew there would be some games played, and that's probably one of the games that's being played right now.
New games, Steve Elson has figured it out a little bit easier this time and jumps into the front of the line ahead of Perry. And they chop it down to about 1.9 seconds up to Sadro.
Now I need to look. Go back on Sven's last lap here and take a look, because he was almost 2 seconds slower that last lap. Okay, so Sven is not out of the realm of making mistakes on his own. He did, looks like he had a little trouble through the Lesmos, a little trouble through his Scari, nothing major, but he's going to have to watch those mistakes. I mean, because even with the big lead, it can go away in a hurry here if you make one too many mistakes.
Lap traffic not really an issue for him now, so mostly just needing that cushion for his own errors, as Adam pointed out. A little bit off into the gravel for Jerry McAreevy. If they're not careful, they'll lose touch with Elson. And the last thing they probably want is Elson finding himself another podium finish this season. As again, he is leading the points championship, but Elson's probably concerned with the driver ahead of him, Daniel Sadro. 1 point separating these two currently. The 51 is going to get a number of more points and probably take the points lead if things stay where they are. But it's a long race. In fact, half of it still left to go.
It's all about lap times right now and everything else, just trying to get the best you can out of it. Murakami right now, actually one of the faster cars on the racetrack. So he might bear watching. He's in the back end of that second pack that we've been talking about with Federer and Patterson.
As we were watching the lead pack there come onto the front stretch once again. Ooh, McAreevy ducking out. He's going to go by Elson. In fact, 3 wide with Perry down to the inside. Perry wants to be up in front. He's got the inside line. If they don't sort this out, they're going to slow each other up again and just about get it sorted out in time. But I can report that it is still 2.7 seconds from Perry to Sadro. Got a few more takers in the pits. Jim McGill has been in and out. Lee Tomlinson, Bob Kern, Adam Bradshaw, Dominique Bureau, all taking scheduled stops.
A lot of these guys taking their faster pairs as well here right now.
Don't blame them. That means Stevie Ray, still our highest pitter. He runs 15th. But he has a lot of cars in front of him who still need to take their stop that he will probably jump. We looked at the Spec 2 lead for a bit, but what about the last spot on that Spec 2 podium? That actually is swapped back and forth a little bit. Jeff Jacobson and Ramon Regalado are in a 2-car tandem and have been for a few laps now. This is for 10th overall, but again, 3rd in the Spec 2 race. In fact, Ramon not looking like he's particularly threatening Jacobson right now. Might want to hustle a little bit to get back into the draft of the 240.
I don't know how much Ramon can hustle right now either, though. I mean, back into that car, kind of sticking up in the air a little bit. I mean, he'll be a prime candidate, I think, to take his faster pair, and maybe getting that arrow better in the back might be worth an extra 10th or 2 a lap at this point.
Looking to see who some of our hard chargers are. And Kip Stevens, who did get a qualifying time in, but I'm not sure if you could consider it representative, has gone from 24th to 14th, but he's...
Jason Perry just shot down pit road. Joe Aguilar decided to come with it, and they almost had a moment coming down. In fact, Joe Aguilar hit the cone. Hopefully he doesn't get an unsafe entry here. Take a look at this, right on board. You'll see that gap between him and Perry close up in a hurry.
Didn't practice enough pit entries. And let me double check to see what his speed is coming in there, because I think you're right. That's looking like a potential speeding penalty. He was as high as 45 miles per hour during part of it. And I think they're supposed to be going, looks like about 30 regularly, so...
Well, either way, it didn't look like he served much of a penalty. In fact, Jason Perry might be the one serving a penalty right now.
Yes, he did indeed. It's 15 seconds longer. Wow. Well, that was bizarre. So that
I wonder if maybe he saw what was happening in his rear view there and
sped up to avoid it?
Yeah, maybe. I don't know, but either way, that's the first of our leaders to come down pit road, so maybe we'll start to see a trend here. One thing to note, Stevie Ray is out in front of Joe Aguilar.
I just noticed that, and I'm looking at their pit stop times. Stevie Ray had a pretty lightning stop, 10.6 seconds. He must have been saving some incredible fuel during his first third. So he beats out Joe Aguilar, allowing himself to be the highest pitter still with 15 minutes left to go. And I'm curious if McAreevy and Elson will now respond, or now that it's only 2, are they going to stay out potentially just utilizing the fact that it's easier to coordinate a 2-car train than it is a 4-car train?
I guess we'll find out because they're coming to pit entry now. McAreevy's still holding the inside line. I think McAreevy's going to come in here. Nope, McAreevy doesn't. He fakes it, but Elson decides to still come in, and then behind him, Federer and Patterson coming in now as well, and then Murakami as well, too.
Our leader is in their pit stall, Sven Demmel. Jerry McAreevy, the only of a lot of the top cars to stay out. Demmel with a nice pit stop, 11 seconds. That should easily return him ahead of Stevie Ray, who was our highest pitter. In fact, Demmel way out before they even get to the front stretch. Sadro returns, 13 seconds stationary for him. So is anybody going to challenge Sadro? Looks like...
I'd almost have to wonder... I mean, looking at pit stop times here, with as fast that Sven went, is he going to have to worry about fuel? I mean, why did everybody else take 13-second stops and he took 11?
Good question. Oof, we'll have to watch out for that HJ Motorsports car. Maybe this is the drama for this race. He's got to have one at least each race, I suppose. Donald Fitterer, though, big winner in the stops. He came in a little bit behind Steve Elson, remember? Well, he is right with him now. And they're both back out. Elson running 6th, Fitterer running 7th, and then missing the chicane is going to easily hand it over to Fitterer.
Yeah, in fact, that Aguilar, Ray, going to get by him. Patterson might even be able to get by him too here with the momentum going through the Lesmos. No, Patterson, I think, is going to end up being the one that's stuck behind him.
Oof, he hit that sleeping policeman really hard. Hopefully he didn't get any damage on the underside, especially now that his pit stop is already over. We're still waiting on 3 cars to pit. McAreevy, Regalado, and Stevens. In fact, I think we'll see all 3 of them in this lap because that seems like that is the end of the window. Here comes McAreevy. This is Regalado in the 288. He may be leading the Spec 2 currently, but he will hand that back over to Fitterer after this stop.
Here comes Regalado, and he didn't have the best of entrances there, kind of slow on the entry. You know, I'm gonna throw a little bit of a curveball your way here, Joe, and give out the biggest winner for the pit stops. Actually, I would say Daniel Sadro. I mean, he's been in command of 2nd place now for quite a long time, but the other guys were still kind of in shouting distance, and now not even close. In fact, Donald Federer is the closest one there. We'll see where McAreevy works out, but Sadro is way, way far ahead now.
It's looking like about 2.5 seconds.
See GSRC replay there with Stevie Ray.
Well, that is
Stevie Ray's day just went bad.
disappointing for the Texan. He's still out and running, but you can see how much damage is on the car. He's essentially just trying to limp it home from here. Oh, and Elson is in a 2nd time?
Did he get some sort of penalty?
It was only 11 seconds. No, 15. Sorry, I was looking at the wrong driver. He must have sped on the pit exit. Well, Steve Elson, he is our points leader. And he just went across the blend line we saw. So potentially maybe that's what caused it last time. I would be shocked if he did it twice, though. I mean, you would think the first time he would be aware of it. Anyways, this bumps him down to 20th. And again, last race was a bad one for Elson. They do get 3 drop weeks. And I suspect this will be another drop week for Steven. He's gonna limit those if he wants to continue to lead the points. This will certainly allow Daniel Sadro an easy jump up to the top spot in the championship. Jim McGill having some issues. I think this is the Lesmos again. We watched him have a spin out of Lesmo 2 earlier, and he's going to repeat the feat, but in a different way. Down and just
rode that
sliding
Armco for a
into
while.
the Armco. Yeah.
I
That
don't
puts him
think
in
his front end
14th.
will be too happy with him after that.
Certainly not. You
Here
were
we
talking.
go. Battle right
Yeah.
now for, is that 3rd, 4th, and 5th.
It is indeed. You were talking about the gap. It is 8.5 seconds from 3rd up to 2nd place, and it's because of this sort of action. McAreevy and Fitterer side by side into the Redifilio chicane. Fitterer is going to back out of it. Joe Aguilar slots in behind Donald. This is great stuff for Fitterer because not only has he dropped Patterson, but Patterson's got nobody to work with. While Donald could necessarily try and use the slipstream to get a little bit of extra pace from these drivers he's with. Van Demmel, of course, still leading the way, 15 seconds now for him.
That last time by, there were only 2 drivers that were down in the 215s. Your leader, Sven Demmel, and then also Joe Aguilar.
Interesting. Joe could have been getting a little bit of a slipstream.
Oh, I'm sure he's getting a lot of slipstream, but still.
Yeah. Yeah, that tells you something that what Joe can do with the draft, Sven can do on his own. That's always demoralizing. They work their way down towards the Ascari chicane. Jerry McAreevy's starting to get a tiny breakaway. Can he take advantage of this? He had about 0.8 of a second. It's got to be nice and smooth here. Really apply the power well to get himself out of reach from Aguilar and Fitterer. Down to 7 minutes left to go on the clock in this 40-minute race. If you're just joining us, this is round 6 in the Weekend Warriors here at Monza. It has been Sven Demmel leading since the drop of the green. We check back on this 3-way battle for P8. That is Chris Murakami. You see in the 01, the red and white machine. Ramon Regalado in the yellow, black and white.
That was an aggressive move.
Yeah. Deciding to make it 3 wide momentarily between Murakami and Jacobsen, the third one in the number 240 car. Looks like Jacobsen going to get himself a nice little boost of speed up the pit straight, and he's going to be fully ahead by the time they break for the first chicane. They are also running down Stevie Ray. Oh, and Regalado, I think, blowing the chicane. Big time.
Jake Jacobsen didn't have that good of a chicane either, and Murakami got a big run on him here, and they're going to go side by side heading to the Lesmos. Or excuse me,
De La Roja.
You know what I mean.
Yeah. Yes, and he did pull back in behind. So Murakami, knowing that it's only 2 cars now, not fighting too hard, trying to drop the likes of Regalado. They are gaining on the car ahead, which is the number 11 of Stevie Ray. Where Stevie's doing his best to make the best of a bad situation. But I think at this point he's just going to be a sitting duck.
Hey, I want to go back a little bit here, just because these guys have been fighting the entire race. We really haven't had too much of a chance to talk about it. Pierre Lowry and Lee Tomlinson, these guys have not been able to get away from each other. Still out there running hard, and right now Pierre Lowry right in front of him, Lee Tomlinson.
And something's happened to Patterson. This was in the Ascari chicane. Costly mistake, positions lost, and it was driver error all on his own. Somebody found the curbs finally. Spits him back in 10th place.
Did a good job of ditching it right there and not hitting anything. That took him a long time to get back going straight.
As we come back live, I want to go back to that battle you were talking about for 12th. Just to make things personal, Tomlinson from the UKNI club, Pierre Lowry from France. So,
Well, there you go. Go back to, some of the old wars that were fought back there, going back into the 1000s,
Forever,
1200s,
basically.
1400s, Napoleonic times.
right on board with Lowry as he stays in the slipstream of Tomlinson, weaving their way through the Rettifilio chicane. They've swapped positions a couple times, but these laps nearly a little over 2 minutes. And not nearly, they are over 2 minutes, but the clock down to 4 minutes left. I suspect we're not going to have too many laps left here. As they go side by side now towards De La Roja. Lowry's going to get by. Tomlinson slips back in behind him. me see. I'm keeping half an eye on our leader to see when he crosses the line. And actually, it should be pretty simple. This will be 2 to go this time by for the HJ Motorsports.
Oh, Joe
number
Aguilar
22.
getting really loose. Jerry McAreevy has to take evasive action to avoid him. He's in the tire barrier.
Oh, disappointment for Jerry McAreevy. See the replay. And you know what? It looks like it started even before the error from the number 2. That was a lot of curb for the 67. Let's watch it from on board. That'll give us a better idea. Yeah, the hands are already moving around.
Yeah. So they were two totally unrelated things to each other. Man, that's a hard hit.
He's pitting.
Jerry McAreevy's just limping to the pit road right now.
Oh, man. Let's hope he didn't use his spare car so that he can get back out there. And did Donald Fitterer just let Joe Aguilar by?
I think,
He did.
yeah, actually he did.
He lifted. Now, granted, Aguilar was relatively close to him, but this kind of makes me wonder, is Fitterer feeling a little anxious about how he is on fuel?
I mean, I'd hate to manufacture drama or anything like that, but at the same time, it's like, it's what it looks like. I mean, it looks like he's trying to be purposely back in the draft to try to save what little bit he can, which would mean if he's close, there's a possibility our leader is really close as well.
Absolutely. He was only a second longer in the pit stall than Sven Demmel, who will be coming around to take the white flag in a few moments. But Demmel's not showing any signs of slowing up. He's extended the gap, actually, over Sadro. And
yeah, Regalado just ended up going through Della Roggia and ended up having to get off track. I think he ended up incurring cut course penalty in the process of it. Just back end didn't feel well, and ended up having to give up several spots as well in the process of that. You know, one guy up there that's really held his own after an earlier incident in front of that pack is Stevie Ray. Stevie Ray is somehow hanging on to 5th position.
you know, I think some of it just might be due to the fact that everybody around him is having problems and he's chugging along. Fastest lap once again. Oh my God. Fastest lap goes to Sven Demmel. He's not saving fuel, Adam, at all.
No, not at all. I've been wondering when we might see a 214 out of him again, and, you know, like he did in practice on his own, and that was the closest we've seen yet. That was a 215.047, so flying around here. That should be that should have been the white flag he just got too. So he'll be coming around to take the checkered flag here in a little bit.
Is indeed. Somebody call Iro Nam. Get him out onto the Weekend Warrior Series. Oh, and Stevie Ray, we spoke too soon. Oh, we wondered about fuel. This looks to me like a stop for a splash and dash. Lori also not going to make it. Some drivers pushing it a little bit too far. We saw Fitterer pull in behind Aguilar. He stayed out, so he's committed at this point. This will certainly give positions to a number of drivers. Jason Perry certainly taking advantage of all this. He was well down in the mid-pack, but he's back up to P6 due to so many drivers short fueling. Up to the Ascari chicane. Sven Demmel. 3 races in a row. This one, no such dramas like we had before. It's just a simple 20-second lead to put a stomping on his competitors. The Parabolica is all that stands between himself and a hat trick of wins when he's only done 3 races so far this season. Give the number 22 another checkered flag, because your winner today here in Monza is Sven Demmel. 3rd place. Is Donald Fitterer good on fuel now? Can he go on the attack? Sadro ahead of them is going to take an easy second, but it's down between Aguilar and Donald. Looks to the inside. The 211's got to run. No defense from Aguilar, though. Maybe looking for the over-under, trying to get sneaky here. Smoothly through for Donald Fitterer. And I don't think it's enough for Joe to be able to come back at him. He's got a little bit of a slipstream. It'll be close at the line. He's got to run, but no. It's going to be Fitterer for third. Meanwhile, Patterson and Perry fighting for fifth place. Actually, sixth place, I believe, potentially.
Yep, Murakami was able to come home fifth, and great battle to the line there between Patterson and Perry.
Apologies for timing and scoring, showing a little bit of incorrect information. Sometimes the finishing order is a little bit upset. This is Bob Kern and Dominique Bureau, and I think Bob Kern, no, he's not going to come out on top. Is he out of fuel? Here goes Bureau right back past him at the line. Disappointment for the 206. That is going to be the last of our cars fighting on the lead lap. As we take a quick break here on the Global Sim Racing channel, we'll come back with the unofficial results as well as driver interviews. So stick around as we take a small breather here on GSRC. Welcome back to Monza. We just watched round 6 in the Weekend Warriors. A new face has appeared recently, and he is showing everybody how it's done. Sven Dimmel has won his 3rd race in a row and has only showed up for 3 races so far. Daniel Sadro, though, will probably be taking the points lead. He is 2nd today and beats his main rival in the championship, Elson. Donald Fitter takes a podium. But not only that, he wins the Spec 2 race for today and going to extend his lead in that championship. Joe Aguilar in the number 2 car finishes P4. Chris Murakami, how about this? From 11th on the grid to getting a top 5. He was certainly helped out by a number of drivers having problems with fuel. Jason Perry finishes in 6th with Christopher Patterson finishing 7th. Lee Tomlinson from 16th to 8th at the checkered flag, and Jim McGill, despite a couple problems, somehow still winds up P9. Rounding out the top 10, it is Kip Stevens from 24th.
Yeah, not a bad day for Kip Stevens, able to take advantage of some of that out there that happened. But a couple of guys that did run into problems, one of them, Dominique Barreau, who ran into a problem early on in the race, but was able to recover to an 11th place finish. Bob Kern had a few problems, 12th position. Stephen Elson, 2 penalties, and somehow, was still able to come back into 13th position. Stevie Ray, though, 14th. He had a 9th going on the last lap and ended up going into the barrier there around the Lesmos. 15th position, Pierre Lowry, ran out of gas. Tom Gradwell, Adam Bradshaw, 17th position. 18th, Edward Doherty. 19th, Ryan Walker, and Ramon Regaldo in 20th position.
21st will go to Jeff Jacobson with Andy Spicer finishing 22nd. Jerry McAreevy at DNF today in 23rd. John Nielsen behind Tim, then Telmo Amaral, and then David Gassers, Paul Holdy, and C. Love did not starts today. Let's chat to our winner one more time, Sven Dimmel. He's now got 3 wins in a row, and last 2 races, you had a few dramas. This time, Sven, it looked like pretty clean sailing up front.
Yeah, I don't even have much to say about it. The guys behind me went too wide through the first turn, and I almost immediately got out of the draft there. And yeah, that was just hot lapping from that point on.
Was that sort of a perfect scenario for you that you were hoping for, that you could break it that early on? Or did you not expect that you'd be able to ever break the draft here?
Yeah, I didn't expect I was able to break that, especially not that quickly, because the draft is pretty big here, and I mean, some of those guys are not that much slower that they could just fall off like that. But since they went too wide, they slowed each other down so much. It was way better than I could have hoped for.
You seemed like you had things mostly under control, although you had a couple problems through the Lesmos, I believe, as well as Ascari. Is there any portion of the circuit that you find particularly tricky compared to the rest?
Yeah, definitely those 2 you were talking about. I mean, the Lesmos are just you have to be patient, don't overdrive it. They aren't really that big of an issue in terms of crashing or something like that. But Ascari is really dangerous. If you touch the curbs a little too much, the car just goes away, and you can even easily flip there if you hit one of those sausage curbs.
Well, thankfully, we didn't see that from you today. You kept the car pointed forward. You didn't mess up your pit stop, and you took away the win. Congratulations on number 3, sir.
Thanks.
That was Sven Dimmel, our winner. Up next is 2nd place Daniel Sadro, and Adam's talking to him.
Yeah, Daniel, another great run out there here for this afternoon. And, I've got to ask, I mean, those guys behind you, the group with McReevy and Jason Perry, you had them beat for most of the race, but they weren't able to pull away. And then the first pit stop happened, and then they weren't there. Was that a sigh of relief from you to no longer have them hanging around and ready to strike?
Oh, for sure. I would, the first half of the race, once we had lost Sven, I would occasionally take a look at the black box with the relatives, and all I saw was the Jaws theme coming at me. I thought that they'd work together and catch up, but unfortunately they had their issues and kind of just let me go by. And then with the pit stop, I must have had a really good pit stop compared to the lot of them. So that and then I was smooth sailing from there on.
And of course you dominated pretty much second position. I mean, did it feel like you were just playing second fiddle to Sven here for today?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, yeah, he was just untouchable. If I was able to keep up with him that first lap, it would have been a different story. But just because he got 2 seconds ahead, and then he was gone for good.
So in your opinion, what was the big factor in today? I mean, obviously we saw some guys that we thought might be able to work in the draft that ultimately weren't really able to make up ground in the draft. I mean, was it just running clean? I mean, was it, taking advantage of other people's mistakes? What was the big X factor today?
Oh, that's a good question. I would say it's staying clean. The layout on Monza looks so simple. It's deceptively simple. It's just, you go straight, you turn, go straight, turn, go straight, with all the chicanes. But each chicane is very, very different, and you can mess them up very, very easily. I had a lot of problems in the second chicane. I think a lot of people were having problems in the first, and it was just who made fewer mistakes there.
All right. Well, hey, good points day for you, and we'll see you here next week at Laguna Seca.
Well, thanks, and thanks for broadcasting, and thanks to the Hallett Race Shop guys for sponsoring the broadcast.
That was second place, Daniel Sadro. We've also got our third place finisher and our Spec 2 winner, Donald Fitterer, ready to talk to us. Donald, while other people seem to have cut the fuel a little bit too short, you seem to have gotten it right. Was that ever a concern for you? Did you have to save it all during this race?
No, not really. It was my best pit stop ever, so I was very happy with it. And I had 2 gallons left, or not 2 gallons, 2 laps of fuel left at the end.
Well, that's fantastic news. And you did have a little bit of a tussle throughout the race, some back and forth draft battling, or maybe it was working together with one of the other Spec 2 drivers, Christopher Patterson. Did you kind of want to get away from him so that he couldn't snipe you at the end?
Well, Chris has really improved, and I just appreciated how he drove, where we worked together, and I think just a little bit faster on some of those corners, and Chris gave them to me, and I think that's what helped us, is that we didn't battle too much.
Next race, we're going out to California for Laguna Seca. That's going to be very different from the draft race we had here. How confident do you feel going into that one?
I'm fairly good at that track. I probably jinxed myself and wrecked now that I've said that, but I usually have good results there.
Well, here's hoping that you can continue these podiums that you seem to be sniping here and there. Congratulations, and look forward to seeing you in a week's time.
Cheers, Joe. Thanks very much.
That was the number 211 car winning our Spec 2, taking third in this race. And I believe that's going to wrap us up for today. So we're going to thank the Hallett Race Shop ourselves. You can check them out at hallettracing.net if you want to see what they can offer for you, if maybe you want to hop into a real spec racer Ford yourself. Also, big thanks to iRacing for putting us on the IESN. Make sure and subscribe. Go to their YouTube page and click the big red button. Thanks to the companies that provide the software and hardware for our broadcast listed here on your screen. And additional thanks go out to June Lalonde, who provides our wonderful music. See the screen for how to get a hold of more of her great work. Thanks to the team today, Bill, Amjed, and Dougie, except that's Adam, Amjed, and Dougie. If you'd like to find out more about GSRC, including upcoming races, you can find it at globalsimracingchannel.com. You can also check us out on social media. We're on Twitter at GSR Channel, Facebook at Global Sim Racing Channel, and Instagram at GSRC_Graham. As we mentioned, heading over to Monterey. That'll be Sunday, April 28th for WeatherTech Raceway at 3:45 p.m. Eastern. We also have upcoming races for other series listed on the screen, so check those out and mark them down on your calendar. But until next time, race clean, race hard. We'll see you on the track.